Welcome to the weekly worship service of the First Church in Boston, a Unitarian Universalist congregation in the Back Bay. First Church offers this broadcast each Sunday morning from 11 a.m. to noon here at 88.9 WERS. The Reverend Edmund Robinson is minister at First Church. His sermon today is entitled Salvation by Character.
Good morning. Is this on? Yes. Welcome to First Church in Boston. Our worship service is third day of April 2022. I am Edmund Robinson, the interim minister, continuing the worship tradition of this church, which dates back almost 400 years. We are the oldest church in Boston with the newest building. Our Paul Rudolph designed sanctuary in Boston's Back Bay is now open for live worship after being closed for 6 weeks due to COVID. We also welcome those joining us live streaming on Facebook and those who are joining on WERS FM 88.9, the radio station of Emerson College. We hope those joining off the premises will find the time to visit us in person some Sunday in the future when we can meet you. This is devoted to poetry. This is National Poetry Month, and we're celebrating poetry here. Ancient times, there was a great essay by the poet Horace on the art of poetry called Ars Poetica, and then in modern times, Archibald MacLeish updated that with this poem, which is often cited as to what poetry is, Ars Poetica. A poem should be palpable and mute as a globed fruit, dumb as old medallions to the thumb, silent as the sleeve-worn stone of casement ledges where the moss has grown. A poem should be wordless as the flight of birds. A poem should be motionless in time as the moon climbs, leaving as the moon releases, twig by twig, the night-entangled trees, leaving as the moon behind the winter leaves, memory by memory, the mind. A poem should be motionless in time as the moon climbs. A poem should be equal to, not true. for all the history of grief, an empty doorway and a maple leaf, for love, the leaning grasses and two lights above the sea. A poem should not mean, but be. Our first reader, this is well-known to everyone in First Church because her family has sort of been First Church for so long. Leo Collins was a wonderful, revered music director here, and then when he retired from that, he became the church historian. And so the keeper of all the memories of the church have now resided with the Collins family, and Mary is going to give us some of her great poetry.
Said the dancer to the civil rights lawyer, "May I cut in?" Change partners. Jazz justice until it becomes the music. Dance with the broken, the downtrodden, the giving, the mean. Perform the daily routine, breathing life into fingertips, tips of toes, making a body become buoyant so that it gives off hope like a helium fireball. Each day, outstretching arms in sunrise, crying to be able to lift out of despair. Out of hard-baked ground, out of broken seed, grows a sunflower. Joyful spurt of life, wild abandoned life, little sunflower. Colors like a soaring kite, a flash of glistening yellow light, dancing on the fishtail leaves and flirting with the summer breeze. Boundless energy, racing toward the sun with a will of one. Boundless spirit free, sparkling in the sun, with a will of one. Some of you may know that my father was music director at this church for 33 years. I guess you just heard that. What you may not know is that my mother's father was also an organist and choir master in Vancouver, British Columbia. When my father retired in 1997, my mother and I went to sing with John Andrew Ross at the First Parish of Brookline. John was minister of music there. He also assisted in the direction of the Black Nativity with Thelma Lewis every year. His family was actually friends with Langston Hughes, and he knew him when he was growing up. John was equally comfortable playing jazz and with classical music. He was a superb organist. He and my father knew each other at the Boston University School of Fine Arts, where they both got degrees. This poem is dedicated to the memory of John Andrew Ross. And a choir master gave birth to me and to my mother. Our choir master, a courier from God, has winged heels he's planted in this place. The colored light, a garden where my soul's been led, where I trembling drink from the gourd high above us all in the listening sky, and swallow the secrets I'm not allowed to say. Churches gone up in flame, bodies' confusions, the train of love and hate, riding invisible tracks through the skin. He stood through every storm, wailing around him in the ricocheting of branches, wrenched loose from their moorings. He consecrates the harmony in the still center of the dance. He told us a story of a 6-year-old girl at the school where he teaches in Roxbury, being coached by a noted visitor with all the respect given to any diva to shape her phrases so that they are long and flowing and aimed towards the important words. She held her head high, knowing with a 6-year-old certainty that she would soon be ready for Carnegie Hall. I've lurked outside in the shadows, looked for signs that decode the atmosphere. Now I see a dear angel guiding the crossover into campground. I give myself to the hypnotic trail of musical notes that cancel the pain, long to find a way home. After a nighttime music session, the moon walks in darkness, stars tumble down, so fantasy in her gypsy black hair, mustard, mint, magnolia perfumes, elephant whispers. Parallel universes. There is a tree with a lavender trunk where silvery birds perch next to pale pink flowers. Krishna charms her cows with his musical flute. She lays down her staff and curls up at his feet. From the symphony stage, people hear the woody sounds of the clarinet, sounds that nestle into plush red velvet and gold leaf. The organ's promontory. Sharp angles of the organ's silver pipe's casement cause a mountainous vertigo from the congregant substratum. Its sounds construct a scaffolding that supplants the placement of the gray walls in the church's inner sanctum. Entranced, she listens and becomes a prayerful goat herd, following a white-bearded goat and the forest flute, ringing notes, crisp and mellow, bright and shadowed, entice her up and up a timbre-lined route. As the shudders, as the attack and release of the keys shade and vary her pathway, she is drawn higher. The pulling of the stops shifts flauto dolce to reeds. The colors of the organ transcend beyond the spire. And finally, as the grand jeu is brought into play, goat and goat herd kaleidoscope onto the gray. Leela, a mentor and keeper of music the saints marched in. Son Johnny, jazz drummer, come time's final cadence, lost her, lost it. Every stroke of the drum sounded silence. They shut the lid to the coffin, or he'd dart in. Ma, you was like Jesus. You was like Jesus, he screamed. Remember the little boy, once mute and rigid in class, refusing the judgment, the logic of white people's math. But Ma wouldn't let go the sum of Martin King's dream. Every Sunday, she bequeathed her rich alto voice, alone, with the congregation of First Church Boston about her. She soloed, warming those who were skeptics in the highest, who kept a distance from praise and the passion of Christ. Ma, you was like Jesus. You was Jesus, God's choice. And how will the hi-hat cymbal shimmer without her? Late November. The last leaves won't let go of the oak outside my window. They hang on like little ghosts before being blown away in a figmentary vortex to the land of the dead, with no way to follow. gone into the romance of lost time that hazily adorns the doorway into the now, like mistletoe, making it time for a kiss. Spring altar. Ah, when I grow up, with each breath of spring, as blossoms form in nature's temple, coloring a pastel seance, chattering birds announce his returning, he who said so much by birth. The golden star shines on because the other side of death is life, is love.
I'm Craig Hildreth, your announcer and broadcaster. Videographer is Masha Stefanik. Our guest pianist today is Jasmine.
Go right ahead and
In one of our
applaud.
regular hymns in celebration of National Poetry Month, we will be hearing select poems by church members Mary Collins and guest poets Erica Funkhouser and Regie Gibson.
Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, "You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others." And I invite you to rise as you are able for the First Church of Boston affirmation, which is in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated. We're rolling down toward the 50th anniversary celebration coming up at the end of this new month, April 30th. You can see the signs of it out in the narthex, a beautiful exhibition of pictures of this building taken by Bill Thorpe, and with poetry and other words accompanying each one. It's a gorgeous celebration. I think it's got one more panel to be put up, but you're welcome to see it after the service. Also, poetry will continue after this service. We'll have the coffee hour, and then we'll gather in the auditorium for you to recite any poems that you may have brought with you, by heart, in paper, whatever, original or classical. I've been asked to promote the idea of returning to social circles, social suppers in people's homes. I'd like to start thinking about that. I'd love a volunteer to organize it. It doesn't take too much organization, but it's really very satisfying. So now I have the great privilege of introducing a very old friend of mine. We were so old, we met when we were students of trying to get Gene McCarthy elected, and the war in Vietnam stopped in suburban Philadelphia in 1968. So from that point to this, she has written some wonderful, wonderful poetry, and I'm going to have her share it with you, Erica Funkhouser.
Good morning. Thank you all very much for coming, and thank you, Edmund. A lot of years have gone by and a lot of politics. I'm reading this morning from a book of poems called Post and Rail, and the poems it's a one book-long poem, and the poems are divided into many sections, but each page looks like a post and rail fence. I don't know if you can see this. Each page is made up of 3 couplets, so that the rails are what is spoken, and everything else creates the posts. In other words, the absences on the page create the posts. I wrote this book in an attempt to understand the silences of my own mother, whose father was a coal miner in western Pennsylvania, came from a long line of coal miners who before that were flax farmers who had come from Northern Ireland. And generation after generation was poor, so to find out about them, I didn't have the liberty of looking at deeds or wills or letters or any kind of material substance. So I had to kind of invent an origin for this silence. At the same time, I am working at MIT, and MIT was very involved in the perception of gravitational waves. Gravitational waves were created 1.3 billion years ago, I think, by the collision of black holes. And they were always coming to Earth. Einstein theorized their presence, but we didn't know how to listen for them until the invention of something called LIGO, which is a laser interferometer gravitational wave observatory. Longest phrase I will use this morning. Basically a way of listening to the sounds of gravitational waves as they arrive on Earth, which made me realize I needed to develop engineering of my own to hear the story of my ancestors, hence my post and rails. The post is lowly. One may be a pillar of the community. Who's a post? With more elevation, it becomes a pole. With less, a stump. Some girth is required, plumpness of the sedentary. No figure to speak of. Minus a few inches, it's a stake. Column implies a surrounding edifice. None. Humming with resin when fresh. Confidence of the newly sunk. Come, lend me your elbows. Soon it goes gray and softens into time. Stepping off the school bus to the street, climbing the granite slabs to the path to the kitchen door, we hear our mother, "Don't come home without a cow." They escape complacently, wandering Monument Street as if they were station wagons, or veering off into the woods where they stop among dogtooth violets to doze. We are the agitated ones with our need to be elsewhere, free among friends. Our fists throb with plucked grass to tempt the bored foragers. To Bernard and Sarah, the first child is born 1875, Chest Springs, Pennsylvania, Charles Henry. In 2 years, marry Emma in Liberty. 2 years later, in panic, Robert Shirley. From pillar to post, Bernard down the mines, Sarah barely 20. Reynoldsville in 1883, twins, Joseph Milo, dead at 3, James Ira. Sometime later, place unknown, Matthias Ura. 1889 in Coalport, Frederick Bernard. Clyde Oren, 1891 in Frugality, unincorporated home of frugality, coke, and coal. Here, only deaths are recorded. My mother never told us her father was a twin, the second boy buried before he turned 4. She never said the McFeelys were Catholics. She was anti-union, despite the fact that her father, all his life a miner for Berwyn White Coal Company, was let go when emphysema disabled him. Nor did she say that the store where she worked at the jewelry counter was the company's store, or that the Polish boy who walked into town to flirt with her over chocolate sodas came from Scalp Level, a coal patch for the workers at Eureka Mines 30 and 40. She did say she loved to play tennis, loved to pick fruit at her mother's family's farm, our grandmother, whose recipe for bread and butter pickles begins, pick 100 cucumbers. Her father was a hard man, she said, as if he'd made himself that way. She was born tiny, graceful, tough, she'd say when we whined. The last gasp in the life of a large star, a black hole. All along its rim lie the points of no return called the event horizon, the boundary beyond which nothing, not even light, can escape, the black hole's gravitational pull. So much gravity that if our Earth were to fall into it, it would be compressed into a penny. In this cosmic darkness, no one can see, even with devices, any of the losses, if losses is the right word for the disappearance of matter and light never seen by anyone. Here, space is swallowing itself. No wonder we love the little living stars from which we design our constellations. They shimmer carelessly as we shape them into the Queen of Ethiopia or a bull, ancient stories sketched in light. From here, it's possible, is it not, to hear them listening. The forest is where we go to be alone and not alone. Trails ample and narrow for carts, for wanderers, for hunters, for the hunted. We can choose to travel as if we were delivering milk to a neighbor 100 years ago, or in the delicate first steps of a fawn. The porcupine sleeps on his branch. Between trees, the sudden trajectory of a blue jay or the silent articulations of an owl. Of course, the creatures who live hidden in the forest slide behind a stump if they're shy, blink yellow eyes if not. Wherever there is a root cellar, someone is still in residence. In the pond lives a thing that shows only its crenellated tail. When we enter the forest to look for cows, we hope we won't find one. They squeeze their huge, square bodies between trees like glacial erratics, not mean, but stubborn. And the only way to move a cow is sideways. On the day it is announced that gravitational waves have been heard, as these things are heard by a wobble of needles, I read that a sense of place is the torque between temperament and terrain, a personal chirp in one's universe. It helps me to understand my mother if I think of her as an event that took place in distant space, and because its waves could travel unimpeded by matter, has finally brought its birdsong to Earth. Over 1 billion years ago, black holes collided. Now, our instruments of detection have become so elegant and so cute in their L-shaped tunnels in Louisiana and Washington, and in the laboratories of listening, that we can eavesdrop on creation. One day, I'll hear the answer to my mother's, "Who do you think you are?" She loved to sit in big man-made spaces. Gymnasiums, opera house. I think I just turned the sound off.
Okay, good. Okay.
Is that better? Yes, okay. All right, all right. Well, so this poem ends, "She loved to sit in big man-made spaces, gymnasiums, and opera houses, difficult to spot." At daybreak, if they're awake, his children swerve to escape his glance. He tries not to touch them before he goes down the mines, for fear their warm hair will be the last soft thing in his hands. He makes himself into a newt to work all day. Still at supper, the children see a stooped giant. Like the ferns turned to coal by the pressure of centuries, his own words bear no resemblance to their original frivolity. Once he must have played with sound as a fern plays with light, creating color on a gray day, shadows when the day is bright. A fountain of words he must once have been. Aren't we all? He can remember singing to an oak tree, resting his lips against the rough bark to make his music heard. His fingers remember the powdery curiosity of each of his 6 babies as they squirmed in his arms, their eager babble. He fears his silence is a coward's resignation. My mother got up earlier than the rest of us. Summer and winter, always the first in the kitchen. I think she loved us most when she was making our breakfast, while we were still asleep upstairs, and no one was bossy or bratty or sulking or holding two chubby arms out and asking to be picked up. Before that, there were just muffins rising in the oven, oatmeal expertly bubbling, 7 empty glasses. To slide into the seam, the men make a thread of their bodies, lying on one side or on their backs to face the face of coal. There's room to grunt, to spit, to wedge an axe, room for a low basket, not room to kneel or stoop or scratch, to flick a drop of water off. The nicker of a mule might reach them, or the breathing of the earth as it shifts around their bodies. Each slender breath a reassessment of the risk. Others have ancestors who still speak to them, are speaking to them right now, enlarging the moment. They have been summoned by ceremony, by reverence. Like all of these ancient people, they have a fragrance they prefer, a corner of the world, a time of day. Or they come by surprise. They've been watching and saw now was the time to appear. Who is watching me? Who speaks? A presence in the fence posts, in the rails. Something with no eyes, no mouth, and not what we'd call a body, but watching, offering, nudging. Compared to the work they do, my work is useless, but they encourage me. Uselessness is a luxury they believe in. I can tell from the great distances between each of their words that they are in no hurry. They once made their own long and difficult crossings in order to reach a new world. If I journey far to reach one word, they will be patient. A ridge of bark, the canted antenna of a moth. It could be anywhere. A small chirp lets us in on one of the darkest, most energetic events in the universe. One black hole colliding with another 1 billion years ago, unheard until we found a way to listen to the universe. My mother's silence took a long time to reach me, daughter time being governed by its own invisible physics. Her silence was not an absence of sentiment, nor was it chosen. We could see feeling sprinting through her body, and we could see her chafe against it when she wanted us to know one thing we absolutely had to do. It's not that she didn't listen to us, she did, but we knew that if we talked too much, she'd think of something we had to do. And it wasn't an affliction. She looked happy when she sat alone at the kitchen table smoking a cigarette, the inhalation at the corner of her bright red lips and the papery tapping of the ash against the thin white saucer. the only sound for miles. If she'd been writing a letter, the silence would have been a way to wait for words. But she didn't even send a postcard when she went away. Someone else's silence might have made room for instruction, memory, or God, but hers wasn't professional or devotional. It comes to me, not an explanation, but another way of hearing what she would never have put into words. Her silence was a way of emptying her body of everything that interfered with the movement. She was always in motion. It was this restless energy that spoke for her. Watching her slip into her boots, we knew we'd soon be in the woods. Glimpsing her smile as we resurfaced from the pond, we knew our diving was improving. Putting our hands out to take a plate of food and feeling her hands on the other side, firm, not giving up our supper until she was convinced it would be good. We knew everything, almost everything we would need to know. Vanishingly small, these ripples in the fabric of space-time generated by cataclysms in the early universe. Yet here they are, a lost world coming back to us chirp by chirp, if we will just keep listening to the new carrier of information, the gravitational field. My mother had a way of alerting us to the fact that we were loved. We had to supply the words ourselves. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to end with this one. The weather in his dreams was always mild. So when he woke up in California, he knew he was dreaming. Wide rows of citrus trees called to him, and when he started walking, the path didn't narrow. So much blue sky he could close his eyes without fearing the day would be lost. And the sun, how could a thing so kind not grow tired of giving its kindness away? He and Lizzie got a Dalmatian, and the dog ran so fast between the grapefruit trees that its spotted body turned into an arrow of gray. In a real dream, he rode on the dog's back in the shape of a feather, also gray, and like a sailboat seized by the wind, they flew toward the horizon. When they got there, the horizon was as real as the rim of a cup, and into it they dived, dog and feather. Already, that must have been ages ago. Thank you.
You are listening to the Sunday worship service of First Church in Boston, Unitarian Universalist on WERS. We apologize for any technical difficulties that occur over the course of the broadcast. Today's broadcast was brought to you from the Ken Orton Memorial Studio in honor of the original radio voice of First Church.
Plate passes among you. Do we have some ushers to pass the plate? And Jacqueline will give us another selection from Sati.
If you'd like to support the work of this church with a financial donation, you may write a check out to First Church Boston and mail it to 66 Marlborough Street, 02116. You can also donate via text. Simply text the dollar amount, 5, 10, 20, etc., to 617-917-5610. You will receive confirmation by email. Thank you.
I invite you to join in singing the doxology as we receive the offering. Thank you. Please be seated. And welcome Mr. Regie Gibson, who did a wonderful reading about 6 weeks ago right here in this space for the Sanctuary Boston, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say.
Good morning to everyone. How are you? I was reading somewhere where it said that somewhere between 96,000 and 125,000 of us do not wake up. We go to sleep, and that is it. And that most of us die, those of us who do die between around 11 o'clock p.m. and 4 o'clock a.m. So if you did wake up this morning, you are on the right side of the grass. Give yourself a thumbs up, because there's a few of us that did not make it. Where I come from, in Chicago, it's a little small town called Les Hood. Some of you might know it as the Hood. In this place, there is a bunch of churches. In these churches, you'll hear some of the most beautiful music just pouring out of it on Sunday mornings. And every now and then, you'll hear this one voice that somehow calls to you, and it just takes the molecules in your body and just makes them just explode and expand. And when we hear a person that has a voice like that, where I come from, we don't say that that individual can sing. We say that person can sing, right? It's sort of like they get a biscuit and just start sopping every bit of what they can out of the song. And likewise, when we run into a person and we say that that person has a certain je ne sais quoi about them, an indefinable something, we don't say that person has a thing about them. We say that person has a thing about them. Sort of asymmetrical something that we just can't quite put our hands on. We can't quite say it directly. I guess it's like Emily Dickinson tells us, tell the truth, but tell it slant, right? So we listen to what's happening with this person, or what they're giving us, or this situation is giving us, and we don't understand it straight on, but it's something that we have to sort of tilt ourselves, something in ourselves to really get it. So I think about that when I think about this life, this wonderful lottery that we hit. And so I want to ask you guys to do something for me. I want you to just talk back and say something to me. I'm going to give you a phrase. I'm going to teach you some bad English right now. And hopefully your sensibilities will be okay with that. Just want you to say, and you'll know the appointed time, that thing, be thankful for that thing. Think you can say that? Let's try it. That thing, be thankful for that thing. It's pretty good. For each one of us who's felt it, we know it's the sweetest feeling felt. That gentle touch of something that makes all defenses melt. It evades our attempts at language, yet it speaks through everyone. And at times when we are silent, we can almost hear it hum. It's the reason we need poetry. It's why particles come in pairs. It's the yin and yang of molecules. It's why E equals MC squared. Like I said, it's the reason we need poetry, because some feeling and phenomena can't be named. I don't care what it is you want to call this. Let's just be thankful for that thing. That thing, that thing, that thing, thing, thing. Be thankful, thankful for that thing. Now, I'm not here to tell anybody anything they don't already know, and that is everything is connected from the macro to the micro. Don't believe your deceiving eyes. Look deep inside. You'll see it's true that there's a universal union between the universe and you. Now, some find it in their religions and some in their philosophical books of old. Some through the arts and the sciences through a micro or telescope. But it's the mother of all mysteries, from DNA to the Big Bang. And I don't care what it is that you want to call this. Let's just be thankful for that thing. That thing, that thing, that thing, thing, thing. Be thankful, thankful for that thing. We're talking prime causation, quantum fluctuation, cosmic inflation, particle creation, protons and neutrons colliding in deuterium, then into hydrogen, then into helium, then comes the light out of a plasmic darkness, then comes the time that the stars begin their sparking, nucleosynthesis, first stars explode, and then another generation of stars begin their genesis, dust balls forming, planets borning, earth is then birthed, and life begins dawning, prokaryote, cyanobacteria to eukaryote, then multicellular life begins to settle in, fish to amphibian, reptilian, mammalian, primate, great ape, then Homo sapien, whatever it is that began that process I've named. Let's just be thankful for that thing, that thing, that thing, thing, thing. Be thankful, thankful for that thing. How to become an ex-Jehovah's Witness without losing your mind. First, overcome your Pavlovian desire to knock on doors. Sever the Methodist drone from your tongue. Curse its funkless inflection. Imbibe an Africanized gospel. Learn to fear any church that fears drums. Hallow the mouth to a devil sputter. Beat God like he stole someone from you. Pummel him until all that remains is unthunderous pulp and question. Lean that question's heft on your mother's prayer until you hear it snap like a dried clavicle. War into her face. Dare her to pray for you again. Forgive her though she does. Forgive her though she lies. Forgive her. Your name will be Iscariot. Apostate, worldly backslider, kingdom unworthy, your mark will be that of beast. Only take lovers that can burn the Christ you were given, then only take lovers who love only ash. Learn to purgatory, learn to holy like a fist, and move through the church of this world like a pissed off priest in combat boots. Close one eye, bless the backs now turned to you. Then look at your hands and wait for the burning. Wait for the holes to appear, holes just large enough for your fingers to doubt through. I think all of these pieces that I have about some degrees of transformation and moments of transformation or ideas or revelations or epiphanies. This is, pardon my voice. I ate some fish by mistake over the weekend, and I'm allergic to fish. And so it began to close up my throat, and so I've been basically dealing with that, so forgive me. The first time I experienced Jimi Hendrix, it was the summer of 1976. I was 9 years old, and America was drunk kissing itself in a year-long celebration of its 200th birthday. My family and I lived on Chicago's West Side, many sections of which were still economically devastated by the riots of 1968. I sat down in front of the tube with a bowl of something with too much sugar and too little nutrition and began thumbing through TV Guide magazine. As I looked through the program schedules, I saw that highlights of the 1969 concert at Woodstock would be playing on the local PBS station. I'd heard of Woodstock, but it was something I didn't know much about, so I decided to check it out. I turned on the TV, and the first act I see is The Who playing My Generation. I remember thinking, man, these Brits can play. But even then, I knew these cats are high. Next came this cat, Regie, who I never heard of either, but would open for and perform with years later at Club Passim in Cambridge. The brother was a big brown bear, gravelly voicing a tune he called Freedom to the melody of Motherless Child. It was fierce, piercingly raucous, his ham-like hands pummeling the acoustic guitar so hard I was surprised the strings didn't snap. Then came a clip of Hendrix. He was a thin fretboard of a man, wearing a red, sweat-soaked headband wrapped so tightly around his afroed head it looked like one of the mushrooms I knew he had to be tripping on. He was rocking this sky blue Native American style jacket with tassels hanging from the back and sleeves like Spanish moss. He looked down at his guitar, hit the strings, and unleashed an opening salvo of devil dream distortion, feedback, and electric squeals. Yo, this was no guitar. This was no Fender Strat. In Hendrix's hands, it was a strangled white witch putting a 6-string spell on a crowd of acid-taking, weed-whacked hippies. And Hendrix was a voodoo priest demanding that all of hell's demons come up and dance in the rain. Then he launched into the first notes of the Star-Spangled Banner. And I was like a 1970s version of WTF. I had never heard anything like this. Being the son of a cop father, something about what Hendrix was doing felt disrespectful. Being the son of a Jehovah's Witness mama, something about it felt sacrilegious. But being me, at the age I was, there was something about the fact that my parents would hate it that made me lean in and open up to it. I mean, to take the American anthem and twist it in and out of recognizability seemed almost like treason. I couldn't help but watch and listen. So how can I say this?
Please feel free to join us live each Sunday at 66 Marlborough Street at the corner of Berkeley Street in Back Bay. If you would like more information about programs, services, or membership at First Church, please visit the website www.firstchurchboston.org or send an email to office@firstchurchboston.org. I'm Craig Hildreth, your announcer and broadcast engineer. Thank you so much for listening. We will now return you to the studios at WERS.
What is accepted, and that sometimes, like now, when things get ugly in this country, America must try and make music out of our mangled madness. I don't know if I can get through that one. I grew up in Chicago, as I was saying, and found myself in Boston. I married one of your local fauna, and I hated this place when I first got here. Couldn't find my way around. You people speak funny, you know? And I was like, oh, I can't stand this place. And then something happened about 10 years in, right? I began to love it. I don't know how that happens, you know? Sometimes you're with someone and you don't really know how much you love them until a long time goes and you're like, yo, you're like a part of me. And I don't know who I'd be without you right now. And so that kind of thing happened. I think Patricia Smith said something about the spirit, but she was talking about love, and sometimes it just comes over you like a lit match, right? It just opens up inside of you. And so I began to say, yo, I really kind of dig this place. So this is a piece I never thought I'd write. It's called Boston, a very reluctant love poem. So if you will forgive me, I must get into my Emersonian stentorian stance. Boston. Oh, Boston. I dig you, baby. No, I more than dig you. I big dig you. Big dig. How every night you make the stars and street lamps gang light for the right to light you. Big dig you, you bean pot of asphalt, glass, and rubber. That cute little way you have of making both clean hands and dirty work your lovers. Big dig how each year you go once more unto the academic breach with your army of educators fighting to teach your hard-headed students. Some of whom get groggily foggy every night, working late by dim desk light to scale the menacing heights of your formidable scholastic walls. Boston, I big dig each and every all of your taverns, those towny caverns where both blue and white collar gather to holler out their dreams. You know what I mean, Bean? Look around your myriad windows and big dig the scene of all those like me who fell in love with you so many years ago. Big dig them out there freezing to death on your corners, from Mattapan to Wonderland, Jamaica Plain to the Cambridge border. Big dig them in their cars, weaving through your streets, getting lost in your streets. If streets are what these really are, I'm starting to believe you when you tell me these are really paved over cow paths that somehow seem to have some laughable sort of chaotic order. Boston, girlfriend, baby, we need to talk. See, I have noticed lately that as you and I take a walk along the common, you seem to have this inordinately Brahmin-like need for power. The need to seethe and glower at the human race through a face wet and beset with 17th century sweat. And you really seem to love telling people, no, 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 not you and not yet. And when I first got here, back in my younger days, before I understood your wicked, wicked ways, that made me upset. And I still get more than a little bit miffed at the fact that your state house never seems to lack new ways in which to tax. Or, when I want to complain about it, your phone is never on. And I hate it when I need to blue, green, orange, and red line swing to wine and dine and dance and blow off a little steam, and your tea trains refrain at 1 in the morning. 1 in the morning? Come on. But then comes the dawn. When your soon-to-be freshly coffeed head begins its rattle and hum. And I can't stay mad at you for long, especially when I can feel you stirring next to me, yawning awake by yonder light that breaks out of Eastie, piercing as fiercely as the beating of bagpipes and the beating of Afro-Celtic drums. Boston, you are one curious mix of Beacon Hill will and Mass Ave muscle, Dot Ave bustle and Calm Ave moan, washerwoman, student, and cab drivers hustle, singing your freshly minted immigrant songs inside of these mists of these crazy, amazing days of giftedly drifting New England snow. So yeah, Boston, I dig you, even though there are days when you are real pain in the back bay. I got to say, I big dig you. Big dig your artists and writers, musicians, designers, and these crazy poets like myself who you keep on inviting and creating, like some seriously therapy-needing mother whose love both nurtures and smothers her children and others, even though all the while her heart, like her dirty water, keeps on breaking. A few more. My mother, being a very religious woman, she was also always giving us the Bible. We used to get what we call Bible beaten. But she was always looking for a good deal, you know? So she would go to Salvation Army or AMVETS and wind up finding this box of books that she would bring home. And in this box of books, I found what became my good book, which is the complete works of William Shakespeare. And I discovered something years later, something called the Juliet letters, where you can actually write a letter to Juliet and send it to her home in Verona, and somebody on her staff will write you back. So ever since I found out about that, I've been doing that with my students. And here is my first letter to Juliet. It's called Dear Juliet. Dear Juliet, and I'm doing this because we're in Shakespeare's birthday month, April 23. Okay, remember that, mark your calendars. Dear Juliet, I have always wanted to write to you. I have started this letter several times, but always stopped. I was unsure as to what a 21st century African-American man would have in common with a 15th century Italian girl, especially given that at the time you were born, African-Americans hadn't yet been invented. You can laugh at that, it's cool. I suppose it also would have been difficult to get a letter to you knowing how your kinsmen feel about conversations between you and men of which they do not approve. And I am sure by now your daddy has talked to your peeps in Venice about Brabantio and that whole Othello Desdemona thing. Tragic bit of business, that. I just want to ask you a question, though, Julie. What was Romeo really like? I mean, really. Yeah, the story is well known. He comes to a party at your crib and all your cousins start putting the heavy hating on him. But the brother is cool as penguin poop. That is, until he sees you on the dance floor, gyrating your hips to pan, flute, and fiddle. Then he steps to you like some medieval Mac Daddy, and next thing you know, you're leaving your family and a whole house filled with bling to go and run away and lick poison off his lips. Did you think to yourself, how doth one wearing such tights and funny shoes manage to have so much swagger? Have you seen any of the films? Yeah, well, don't go see that DiCaprio one. I mean, it's all right. It's cool. It's a bit overwrought for my taste. But that Zeffirelli one with Olivia Hussey playing you? Oh, that joint is epic. Look, I ain't trying to perv you out or nothing, but I gotta ask, were you that cute in real life? Yeah. I mean, I know that during your time you probably weren't big on bathing or sewage or teeth, but I bet you had to have some kind of pre-Renaissance hotness happening. But yo, back to Romeo. Was there something in how he profaned the holy shrine of your hand? How he could not force his eyes to leave yours even when he gave you his lips' sin and then asked for it back? Or how his kiss was authored by some ancient book that if it is to open inside of a young girl, will only do so once. Sorry to talk so much about it, but ever since I was a boy, I have always wanted to be that kind of man. Now, even though I am married, and things seem to be working out for me and my wife a little bit better than they did for you and Romeo, I would still like to know, what made the two of you love each other so that you would follow one another into death? Well, enough for now, Jules. I'll write again when I can. I don't suppose you text or tweet, do you? Holler back at a brother when you get a minute, all right, girl? Sincerely, a man who still finds just a little bit of you in every woman. And then a couple more, and then I will be out of your wig. Two more that has to do with this town. Forgive me, my voice. Make sure I have that there, and I have that there. Yes, I think that's it. And then my final piece, forgive me. As I said, when I came here, I met one of your local fauna, and we fell in love, as poets tend to do. And so I guess this is for what happens. That March day in Massachusetts, when the second-rate poet from Chicago went shopping for clothing, he never thought he'd buy that black shirt. The one embroidered with that crazy Eastern motif. The one he knew was not his style, the one he figured he'd only wear once, the one he did in fact only wear once. Yes, the thing in the closet next to something else only worn once hanging in the closet. His main thought was, I wonder how this will look on stage this evening. He was vain that way. Likewise, when she wore that cleavage-clinging pink halter top, an ultra-tight pair of black pants, you know, the outfit that screams, I am a feminist with a master's degree in education, and I demand that men respect me for my mind. Yeah, that one. She was only dressing for a comfortable night out with a girlfriend who flaked on her at the last minute, leaving her to go out alone. She had never been to a poetry reading before and wasn't used to going anywhere alone. She almost didn't go. But then she did. She surprised us that way. They didn't expect to meet, much less fall into one another and walk that spiderweb delicate bridge sometimes built between two people on the verge of finding one another interesting. He was a man who had a rather profound liking for the ladies. All of them. But he was profoundly shy when it came to women, especially that night. She, being from Belmont, Massachusetts, and thus a member of the Frozen Chosen, was not used to starting conversations with second-rate poets she didn't know, but she was a little bit more forward than usual, especially that night. And somehow, though this is apocryphal, as stories tend not to corroborate, it is generally agreed that they ended up at IHOP. And over a cup of coffee and a shared Rooty Tooty fresh and fruity, he thought, maybe. And she thought, yeah, maybe. As for you, well, you were not yet you. That is to say, you were you, potentially, but you were not yet this ever-parasitic tsunami of new discovery fueled by laughter and lactation, leaving broken drinking glasses and ruined CDs in your wake. No, you were somewhere, not quite there, a small, curved question mark, faint and forming at the end of some egg named future. Then they loved, and it was good. So they loved again. And during the August of one of those agains, the part of you that had been singing softly and alone inside of her began to sense the part of you singing softly and alone inside of him. And those two soft, alone songs began to reach and find each other, and they began to grow and to swell into one song. You. And when the growing and the swelling were done, you were lifted from inside the soft dark of her, lifted into light, into scream, into breath. After that, he took you into an empty room, and while no one could see the two of you, he held you above his head, looked upwards at the ceiling, imagined the fluorescent lights, a sea of stars stretched endlessly above a land smelling of salt water and village song. And as must have happened in the lands from which your ancestors came, he brought you close and trembling to his chest, told you what your name would be, thanked his now dead father for your safe passage, then asked for strength and guidance from whatever poet's hand authored all this. And I'll end with this. This was a piece I had written back when I was wanting to get into the city, was finding myself missing being here in the Boston, Cambridge area, when I was, like many of us, trapped in the confines of my own house. And I kept saying to myself, like, man, when this thing is over, right? And out of that, this was, I guess, about absence and about hope for the future, which seems to be upon us a bit more than it was before. When this thing is over, when we are finally liberated, when we can emerge from our homes, we will never again take touch for granted. Never again treat after rain sunlight lightly. No, we will close our eyes, inhale and breathe it in. Let it amber over our unmasked faces. Ah, unmasked faces. We will look for other unmasked faces. No, maybe just two. Two laughing together as they walk. We will fall in love with their laughter and start laughing, like those annoying people who laugh because other people are laughing. In fact, we will laugh so loudly that they will look at us and ask, "Why are you laughing?" And we'll say, "Because you were." And we'll all look at each other and burst out laughing. When this thing is over and we can be ourselves again, we will go to the Charles and paint you. And most of us can't paint. But lately, I think we find ourselves driven by a need to commit you to canvas. Capture your colors at different times of day, like Monet at Rouen. We will watch dancers dance to your drumming. Watch them bend, curve, and spell your spaces with the alphabet of their bodies. Dig on musicians, musicking blossoms in our minds. We will hear you singing again, O city of ours. Fall into the us-shaped cracks of a voice lilting language that only the newly broken parts of us can decipher. When this thing is over, we will let your voices enter us like the scent of masala, falafel, challah, reminding us of countries we must live long enough to visit. Grin at men holding each other on street corners, and women kissing as if today were the last time, because they know one day it will be. We will throw our empty arms around the willing and welcoming circumference of you. Walk into places we feared to enter a year before. Wade through the haze of aftershave and perfume. Eavesdrop on earlobe close conversations. Pen poems about lipstick prints on wine glasses. And order 2 drinks. One for ourselves and one to be left there on the counter. Left there untouched in remembrance of those we've lost. So when this thing is over and we can be us again, and city, you can be you again, look for us. We'll be the ones slightly sadder, a little more weepy-eyed, but smiling. The ones who now know that in you even the mundane is meaningful. The ones for whom your absence has somehow made you more present. Thank you.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. In closing, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and to know the place for the first time. Amen. Blessed be. Thank you.
This now concludes the Facebook broadcast of First Church in Boston. Thank you.